What's up, War Room? Welcome back. Joe and Connor here. It's about that time for a mock draft, a top 9 mock draft, which is what we're going to do in the War Room, where the Jets currently pick. Connor, I hope your Christmas was well. We didn't get to talk on Christmas Eve because the Jets 1 o'clock game took 17 hours, and now they're playing a night game again in about 24 hours. But how you doing? How you feeling?
I am good, man. I'm excited for this one. This is a great idea by you because now it makes it more interesting with the Jets winning. There's a lot of different names up in the air. I felt like if they just kept losing and losing and losing and ultimately ended up picking 3, 4, or 5, it was like, okay, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. or one of the 2 top tackles. And we'll just talk about those 3 names with a little Malik Neighbors sprinkled in for a couple months. And the Jets, in very Jets fashion, won. They are picking at 9. And there's a lot of interesting scenarios with this draft with everybody having 2 games left on the season, but it's a good time to kind of look at how this thing could shake out.
It can never be easy. Of course it can't be easy. I was getting ready for a nice 3 months of me and you debating and talking about MHJ versus Alt, but of course, right. I mean, look, there's still a couple weeks left and the Jets, they could move up. They could also move back. We'll have a better feel coming out of this Browns game, which we did find out Trevor Siemian's going to start. Not surprising. I don't think we'll see Zach Wilson again. But let's get in to these top 9. Looks like, as it stands now, first pick, Carolina, the pick is going to the Bears. Going to be hard for them to get knocked out of that slot. So we got the Bears picking first and the Cardinals picking second because Bailey Zappi is red hot. And at least the Jets win aided in the Patriots moving down as Washington jumped to 3. But let's start with 1 and 2 with Bears and Cardinals. Yeah, someone pointed that out in the Discord. There's a nice little silver lining because the Pats would have still been 3, I think, had the Jets lost that game. But let's see.
Okay, so with the Bears picking at 1, I am still of the belief that they'll reset at quarterback as well as Fields has played since he returned from injury this year. I think that Poles will want his own quarterback. That regime wants their own quarterback. I put it like this, because a lot of people are like, well, what if you trade again and they still get, Marvin Harrison Jr. and all these picks? Listen, that'd be awesome. Don't get me wrong. But you have to realize with these organizations is, one, I think they don't know whether to pay Fields or not. And when you don't know whether to pay a guy, that usually is your answer not to more often than not. Now, Fields can here's the good thing for them as well. Fields could get traded for a second round pick because he's played very well. So you're still getting another asset. So ultimately, I think this pick will be either Drake May or Caleb Williams. We'll go Caleb Williams here because he is currently the favorite. I think it's more split than people want to admit. And then when you go to Arizona at 2, this would be Marvin Harrison Jr. If we're going to sit here and keep it simple, Joe, and say no trades right now, that's where it gets really off the rails. He's just too talented of a player. I think he's the best player in the draft. So Caleb Williams goes to the Bears, number 1. Arizona takes Marvin Harrison Jr. at 2. He is a wide receiver that warrants being a number 1 or number 2 pick or number 3 pick in the draft.
Yeah, and like you said, I'm sure there's going to be a ton of chatter about Arizona looking to trade down and collect assets to put around Kyler, who they owe so much money to. But
that
for simplicity's sake,
really rough too.
Yes, they need it. And Harrison, such an exciting and rare prospect at the receiver position that I can't see falling all that far, regardless of whether there's a trade or not a trade. So as it sits right now, Washington at 3 certainly doesn't look like Sam Howell's the quarterback of any future anytime soon. I mean, I feel like 2 guys who host a subscription podcast spend a lot of time talking about the merits of acquiring Jacoby Brissett. And I feel like the Jets would be 13-1 if Jacoby Brissett was their quarterback. But what do we know? Anyway, Washington at 3, Pats at 4. How do these next 2 picks go?
It's probably a good time to say some of our summer takes, and this isn't always the case, we're very honest, are like wine right now. I know Jacoby Brissett was a big offseason one. Just don't keep a fullback on the roster and play Ruckert at fullback.
Ruckert literally just bulldozing lanes open for Breece Hall when he's finally given the chance.
It's amazing the things that sometimes all of the fan base can see and the team can't. So Washington at 3, if you asked me this a month or 2 ago, I would have said, hey, Howell's done enough. Build it around him and see what happens. And now, partly because of Howell, largely because of a pathetic defense, they've bottomed out over the last month. And I always tell people this when that want to get cute. you don't know when you're going to be picking this high again. And
Yep.
Washington's going to have a new staff that they're going to get there. And maybe a big reason that pulled them there was this pick. So this is Drake May in this spot. Now, what that means for Sam Howell is fascinating. They used the fifth on him. Does he get traded for higher than that? Do they keep him? Because Jacoby Brissett's on a 1 year. He's going to go get paid somewhere as a high end backup, and I'd be willing to be
Come
that.
here.
Yeah, I'd
Come
be
here.
willing to be that team to pay him as a high end backup. Jacoby Brissett's got to be looking around at the guys playing and being like, "What? Like, how am I not playing? Is Jacoby Brissett a top 28 quarterback in the league?
100%.
I agree.
Especially right
agree.
now, like with some of the guys we're seeing playing.
Oh, I mean, if we just started the year with everyone healthy, I still think he is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
so he has to be better than a handful of starters. He's better than Ritter, Zach Wilson, Pickett. I'm probably missing some obvious ones. I just need like two more. This is wild. Is he better than Daniel Jones?
There's definitely a conversation to be had that he could be, and he's better than Howell. So you would throw Howell in the mix. He started the year as a starter. So there's 4,
and he's better than whoever Tennessee had to play this year. Tannehill, as much as I like Tannehill, but it's just gone the wrong way.
Yep.
Okay, so that was a fun exercise. So Washington takes Howell at 3, Howell. They take Drake May, another UNC quarterback, at 3, which is great for them and great for us because now New England sits at 4 and the top 2 quarterbacks and the best player in the draft are gone.
Beautiful. Trade back, Bill. He's going to want to trade back, I feel like, right? But even if
I don't think it'll be him. I really don't think it's going to be Bill. I really don't. So
I try to picture somebody else making that decision in New England,
weird.
And it's just been like our entire lives like this. So then who is the guy if they stay put at 4? Because normally you'd be like, all right, New England, like if they stay put, they're going to take like something not exciting or flashy or sexy, right? They're going to take like an interior defensive lineman or they're going to take an offensive lineman. But we don't know who their head coach is going to be. We don't know who their GM is going to be. Then it maybe adds a little more variance to it.
So that's absolutely right. If it was Belichick, and I wrote a mock draft for NBC 2 months ago, and their fan base they were irate with me because I had them take Olu Fashanu really early, and my whole reasoning was like that Belichick is going to build the line, and their line's not very good right now. Now, there's an argument here at 4 to take Malik Neighbors because they also don't have any good wide receivers, any difference-making wide receivers right now.
No.
So I'll actually go Olu Fashanu here and say that they take the tackle and that they try to get creative how to add their wide receiver room, whether that's on day 2 of the draft, whether they try to trade and pay for a guy. They have a ton of salary cap space. So maybe they trade for one of the high-end wide receivers that could be up for a payday, and they get to take a tackle here instead, which kind of sets up really nicely for the Giants at 5 to take Malik Neighbors, the wide receiver from LSU, that I think he's a lot closer to Marvin Harrison Jr. than he is to everybody else in the pack, which speaks to how special of a player he is. I mean, like he's every good a bit of a prospect that Jalen Waddle was, and I think he has a thicker frame that I would feel a little bit better about as well. So this makes a lot of sense. I mean, Caleb Williams to the Bears, Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Cardinals, Drake May to Washington, the Patriots take Olu Fashanu, and the Giants get Malik Neighbors, and then that brings the Chargers at 6. And I could kind of rip through here, and then I'll toss back to you, Joe. This would probably be Joe Alt, and they'd play him at right tackle. So they have Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. I think some of the frustrations from Chargers ownership of why everybody got fired there, because if you look at Tom Telesco, he was one of the longest tenured GMs in football and did an okay job. They had a lot of bad injury luck. He did have misses, but he took Justin Herbert in a year where a lot of people had a lot of questions about Justin Herbert, but he didn't protect him enough. He got Justin Herbert killed over those couple of years. I think the new regime and ownership will make it a mandate to make sure that doesn't happen. So the Jets' dreams of all the players the fans like right now are all gone by 6.
Of course, yeah. I was going to say this is the point.
So how it goes.
This is the point in the draft. Jet fans are like, God damn it. Now, look, to be fair, there's still a world where the Jets can end up picking 5 or 6. We got to see how these next 2 weeks go. But looking more and more likely they pick in this 8-9 range. So the last 2 picks before the Jets go at 9, as it sits right now, is Tennessee and Chicago with their original pick at 8 overall. So who are the last 2 that go before the Jets finally get their top 10 at bat?
So if you're a Jets fan, you're rooting for Tennessee right now almost like no other because they desperately need a tackle really, really badly. And Tennessee could steal a win here. They have Houston and they have Jacksonville. They just took Seattle down to the wire.